All right, so today we're diving deep into thinking fast and slow.
Yeah.
This book, I think it's safe to say, a total game changer in understanding how our minds work. You guys gave us these excerpts, so obviously you're interested in decision making and how our brains can sometimes lead us down some, well,
Interesting paths.
yeah, exactly, interesting paths.
It's true. And Kahneman, he really nails it, explaining why we make those head-scratching choices sometimes.
Totally.
And it all boils down to this idea, right, that our minds use these two totally different systems.
Right, the famous System 1 and System 2. So for someone who's never heard of these, how would you explain it?
Okay, so picture this.
Okay.
System 1. That's your quick thinking, like instinctual self. It's the you that just knows 2 plus 2 or slams the brakes if like a squirrel runs in front of your car. Pure instinct, right? But then you've got System 2. That's the thoughtful one, the one that helps you with like complex problems, planning a trip, or like not eating that entire chocolate cake.
Oh, that's the one I need to work on.
Right. It's slower, more deliberate.
So we've got these two characters in our heads, but they're not always on the same page.
Exactly. And that's where it gets really interesting. Kahneman says that System 1, as fast as it is, it makes some predictable errors.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It uses what are called heuristics, these mental shortcuts, to judge things quickly. But sometimes those shortcuts, they lead us astray.
Okay, I need an example. Shortcut gone wrong.
Okay, think about the last time you heard about a plane crash on the news. Made you a little nervous to fly, maybe?
Well, yeah, maybe a little.
That, right there, is the availability heuristic. Big, vivid events, they make us overestimate how often they actually happen. Because they're easy to remember, but statistically, driving is way more dangerous than flying.
Yeah, it's true. But those plane crash stories, they stick with you.
Exactly. And because they stick, they affect how we make decisions, even if it's not totally rational.
Right.
And it's not just like dramatic stuff. Even just the way information is presented can totally sway us.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Have you ever noticed, like, how just a simple font can make something seem more believable?
No way, really.
Yeah. Studies show people believe things printed in a bold, clear font more often. Kahneman calls it cognitive ease. When something feels fluent, familiar, our minds are like, oh, that must be true, even if there's no reason for it.
So even something as small as typography can, change how we see the truth. That's crazy.
Mhm.
What about those catchy slogans you hear in, advertising?
Oh, absolutely. Cognitive ease again. Rhyming slogans, they're just inherently more pleasing, easier to remember, and that fluency can make whatever they're selling seem, I don't know, more trustworthy somehow.
It's like our poor System 2 is getting tricked by clever marketing. But speaking of being misled, the book talks about the halo effect too,
Oh,
right?
yeah, the halo effect.
What's that all about? The halo effect, huh?
Yeah.
Sounds kind of nice, but something tells me it's not always a good thing.
You're right to be a little suspicious. The halo effect is this weird thing where, like, our first impression of someone, it colors how we see everything else about them.
Okay.
So, like, imagine you meet someone, right? And they're super charming, really friendly.
Gotcha.
You might start to overlook their flaws, or even, like, think they're smarter or more trustworthy just because you like their vibe.
I see. Blinded by the halo.
Exactly. And it works the other way, too. If your first impression is bad, that can stick around, even if they do good things later.
Ouch. One strike and you're out.
Yeah.
We really do judge books by their covers.
We do, way more than we admit. And this actually connects to another big idea in the book, the narrative fallacy.
Okay.
Our minds, they crave a good story, even if that story is, like, way too simple. We want that narrative, that explanation, even if things are actually kind of random.
Okay, yeah, we all love a good story, that's for sure. But how does this narrative fallacy actually work in the real world?
Good question. Think about how we view, like, successful companies. We often say their success is all because of, like, the brilliant CEO, right? Their
Yeah.
vision, their leadership.
Yeah, those classic rags to riches underdog entrepreneur stories.
Exactly. But what we forget is the role of just luck, timing, random chance. The narrative fallacy makes us focus on the individual and not the other stuff that plays a role.
So we prefer a neat little story, even if the truth is way messier. So are you saying we should be skeptical of those overnight success stories?
Yeah.
Maybe there's more to it?
Now you're getting it. It's not about dismissing them, but just being aware of that tendency to oversimplify.
Okay, starting to see things differently now. But
Right.
let's move on to this one really resonated with me, loss aversion.
Ah, loss aversion, yeah.
This idea that losing something just hurts more than gaining the same thing feels good.
It's so true. Like, losing a $10 bill feels way worse than finding one feels good, even though, rationally, it's the same amount of money.
It makes zero sense, but I totally feel that way. Losing just stings more.
And that's what makes loss aversion so powerful. It explains so much about us, why we hold on to those bad investments for too long, why we're more driven by avoiding pain than chasing pleasure.
It's like FOMO, right? That fear of missing out. We're so scared to lose, even something we didn't really have, that it drives our choices more than what we actually want.
You got it. And it actually ties into this idea of framing,
Okay.
how choices are presented. The frame,
Mm.
it changes how we decide, even if the options are objectively the same.
Framing. Okay. Give me an example, something relatable.
All right, picture this. You're at the grocery store looking at yogurt. One says 90% fat-free, the other says contains 10% fat. Same thing, different frame. Which are you grabbing?
Okay. I think I'd go for the 90% fat-free, even
Yeah.
though it's like the same as the other one.
Exactly. The way it's framed, it just feels healthier, right? Even though mathematically it's the same amount of fat. We hate loss in this case, the loss of our health, so that framing, it gets us.
That's kind of sneaky. Marketers are messing with our minds.
In a way they are, but by understanding his biases, we can kind of see through the tricks.
It's all about being aware, not just trusting our gut all the time.
Yeah, engaging system too, right? Remembering those gut reactions aren't always right. And speaking of questioning what we think, this leads us to one of the wildest ideas in the book. The two selves.
Oh yeah, the experiencing self and the remembering self. That one tripped me out. Lay it on me. Who are these characters in my head? Okay, two selves duking it out up there. Hit me with it. What's the deal?
All right, so think about this. You're on vacation, right? Having the time of your life, trying new foods, exploring, soaking up the sun. That's your experiencing self, living in the moment.
That's pretty nice right about now.
Right. But then you've got your remembering self. The part that looks back on that vacation later, forms the memories, decides if it was good or bad. And here's the thing. They don't always agree.
Wait, what? You mean I could remember things differently from how I actually experienced them?
Yep. Kahneman uses this example. Imagine you volunteer for this experiment where you, like, submerge your hand in ice cold water.
Okay, first of all, why?
Yeah.
Sounds awful.
For science. So afterwards, you can repeat it, but there are two options. One is shorter, but the pain at the end is worse. The other is longer, but the pain kind of fades out at the end.
Oh man, I'm cringing just thinking about it. I think I'd rather just get it over with, the shorter one.
That's what most people would think. But here's the wild part. A lot of people choose the longer trial. More total pain, but they choose it.
Seriously, why would anyone choose more pain? That doesn't make any sense.
It's because our remembering self, it's a storyteller. It focuses on what Kahneman calls the peak end rule. We judge the whole experience based on the most intense part and how it ends, not the total amount of good or bad. So with the cold water, even though the longer one had more pain overall, it ended less painfully, so we remember it as being better.
That is so weird. So I might choose more pain just because I'll think about it more fondly later. That's kind of messed up.
It shows how complicated our decision-making is, right? We're not always logical. Our memories, the stories we tell ourselves, they all play a part.
Okay, so beyond like torturing our hands with ice water, how does this play out in real life?
Think about it. We pick vacations based on the highlights we imagine, right? The amazing pictures, the stories we'll tell, even if the day-to-day might have some downsides. Or we stay in jobs we hate because of those peak moments, the promotions, the bonuses, even if we're grinding away most of the time.
It's like we're living for the memory, not the actual experience. Chasing that Instagram post instead of real happiness.
That's a deep thought. And it gets even trickier. Kahneman talks about the focusing illusion, too. It's this thing where we overestimate how much one specific thing will affect our happiness. Like we ignore all the other stuff that actually matters more.
I think I do that. Give me an example, though. Make sure I'm getting it.
It's like when people say, if I live in California, I'd be happy. They're stuck on the weather, right? Thinking that's the key. But they forget about relationships, their job, finding their purpose, all that stuff that matters more in the long run.
It's like that saying, wherever you go, there you are. You're still taking yourself and all your problems with you, even to paradise.
Exactly. Or we kill ourselves to get a raise thinking it'll solve all our money problems. But then we adjust to the new income and the happiness fades. The focusing illusion, it messes with how we see what really matters for being happy.
So if our gut is often wrong, our memories are shaky, and we're falling for these illusions all the time, how are we supposed to make good choices? How are we supposed to live good lives? It's like our own brains are working against us.
That's where Kahneman's work gets really useful. He's not saying we can get rid of these biases completely, they're part of being human, but by understanding them, by being aware, we can kind of lessen their impact. We can make smarter choices.
So it's about noticing when our system one is in charge, maybe jumping to conclusions and then bringing in system two to think things through more carefully.
Exactly. Being more mindful of how we think. Kahneman suggests some things to try, like thinking like a statistician. That means looking at the odds, the actual probabilities, not just our gut feelings.
Thinking like a statistician. That sounds a little intimidating. Any real-life examples, like how I could use that for a big life decision?
Let's say you're thinking about a major career change, something you've always dreamed of. It's easy to get caught up in the excitement, but thinking like a statistician means, doing your homework. What's the job market actually like? What do people get paid? What are the chances of success for someone like you making that switch? Getting that data, it gives you a clearer picture, helps you make a smarter choice.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Taking off the rose-colored glasses, getting real with yourself, balancing that gut feeling with some cold, hard facts.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to get outside views, too. That's what Kahneman calls it. Talk to people who've made similar changes, the good, the bad, get those different perspectives to help balance out your own biases.
Like a reality check from people who've been there, done that. So being open to info that might challenge you, even if it's not what you want to hear.
That's growth right there, right? Questioning your own beliefs. And it's not just for big decisions either, and this applies to everyday stuff too. Evaluating business deal, picking a restaurant, all of it.
It's about being more aware, more thoughtful in everything we do. So if there's one big thing you want listeners to take away from Thinking Fast and Slow, what would it be? What should they really hold on to?
Don't just blindly trust your gut. Our intuition is powerful, but it can definitely mislead us too. By understanding our minds, the shortcuts, the biases, we can start making choices that are more in line with what we truly want. It's like becoming the CEO of your own mind.
I love that. Becoming the CEO of your own mind. It's a journey, right? Always learning, questioning, growing.
Absolutely. And thinking, fast and slow, gives us the tools for that journey. It's a wild ride through the human mind, full of aha moments that will change how you see yourself and the world around you.
There you have it, everyone. A deep dive into the brilliant Thinking Fast and Slow. We've covered the two systems of our minds, the tricks of intuition, the power of framing, our wonky memories, and a whole lot more. But this is really just the start. Now it's about taking these ideas and using them in your own life, in your own decisions, in your own pursuit of happiness. Keep thinking, keep questioning, and keep exploring that fascinating world inside your head. We'll see you next time.